Any feelings we have of disturbance about anything that's occurring all comes about in the same way. And that is holding to a thought and then discriminating about whether that thought is positive or negative, and then accepting or rejecting it. And based on the accumulation of doing that, in other words, that system, that process, we accumulate disturbance. We accumulate all these things that we take to be disturbing. Now, most of the time because of pursuing all thoughts via that model, we think that if we want to calm our thoughts down, or if we want to open our minds or become awakened or enlightened or timelessly wise or whatever we might call it, that in order to do that, we have to get less of these disturbing states. That's what we usually assume, only because we've been habitualized to over and over again accepting some things, rejecting others, and then accumulating the disturbance around what we decide is unacceptable. And so many of us, when we hear about complete mental freedom, we're sure that complete mental freedom has something to do with completely stopping thoughts, especially disturbing thoughts, and that mental freedom must have something to do with only having positive states or positive thoughts and emotions and experiences. Because we have a habit of dualist perception, we just see everything that way, including mental freedom. However, within the expanse of the basic space of awareness, all these thoughts that appear, what I just call points of view, appearing in the all-encompassing pure view of awareness, all of them are equal. They're absolutely equal. They have never been troublesome in any way. It's only when we take them to be troublesome that they are. All they are is the dynamic energy of awareness and nothing else. So we could call this, another thing that we could call this process I just described is old mind. And this is just in a very simple human way. We don't have to say that it belongs to any kind of category of inquiry, like philosophy or spirituality or religion. We'll just say this is about being human. And there's the old mind, and the old mind holds to thoughts and discriminates as to whether they're good or bad, positive or negative, and then based upon that accepts or rejects and accumulates disturbing states based on that acceptance and rejection. So we'll just call that old mind. It's just one way of looking at things, one way of seeing things. Now, new mind is not something other than old mind. So new mind and old mind aren't two. The distinction is in whether or not there is distraction by thoughts, whatever they are. When there's no holding to thoughts, they continue to appear, but whether they're judged to be positive or negative matters not. There's just complete relaxation in relation to anything that appears. And it isn't a state that's dissociated from what appears, but rather because awareness is what is the root of everything that appears, awareness is inseparable from these thoughts. So it's awareness that becomes predominant rather than the dictionary definition. Now, another way to look at this with a very simple illustration is just to take a dictionary. It's a huge dictionary, an Oxford Unabridged dictionary, or one of these other dictionaries that you need a special room for. It has so many words in it, and there are probably even more words than that because there are many colloquialisms that aren't in the dictionary. But say we had a book and it had every word in the world in it. To judge our thoughts, no matter what they are, our thoughts about emotions, experiences, sensations, to judge these thoughts to be troublesome is like saying a dictionary is troublesome. Now, a dictionary, it can cause us no trouble. It really can't cause us any trouble. It can only cause us trouble if we look at all those words and then we decide that they really can upset us or not. Now, so why bother? Why bother to even know about this? Well, the reason that we should bother with knowing about this is twofold. One is that in knowing about this and training our perception to completely relax and open from this tight hold and focus on all the thoughts, we enter an entirely new way of being. Rather than this constant process of acceptance and rejection of what is good and what is bad, and living within such a tight paradigm of this and that and is and isn't, we completely relax into a space of wisdom that is completely beyond assessing things as to whether they're good and bad. So we open up into a non-conceptual, conceptual space. These two are not two, where we have complete wisdom, primordial wisdom, timeless wisdom that doesn't need thinking to arrive at decisions, that doesn't need thinking to arrive at benefit. And the only way that we can open up to this reality within ourselves is just to relax perception. That's it. If we try to add in all kinds of things to evoke what's already present, then we're going to be off on endless detours. So if we think that we have to do things in a certain way, or twist our body into a certain shape, or repeat certain words, or worship something, then even though this is what we want so much, what we want more than anything, we're going to veer off away from that. Now, when we relax into this openness of complete perceptual openness in all experience, what we experience is awareness that is the root of everything. We just simply relax, open up, and experience the awareness that is the root of everything. And that awareness is synonymous with wisdom and with love and with benefit and contentment and ease. There have always been human beings throughout human history who have known this about themselves and others. Yet at this time in human history, it's the first time where the very direct teachings that have only been available to very, very few in the past are for the first time available to everyone in the world. So this is the only distinction between now and what's always been. Within that distinction is that for the first time, everyone in the world is connected, and we all have a common language of understanding of being a global human culture to one degree or another. So the first time these teachings can be given in a language system that everyone understands. If I say awareness, then there's no human being anywhere who can say I'm not aware. But if I say something like Dharmakaya, well, then there'll only be very few people who understand what that means. But if I say timeless wisdom awareness, then it's very likely that many more people can relate to that. So there isn't any special language system that has ownership over the complete freedom of everything as it is. And there's never anything in the way of the complete freedom of everything as it is. If there's anything at all that even subtly we believe is in the way of the complete freedom and openness of our perception, then we need to really know that that's just a point of view. That's all it is. No matter how many people might believe it, it's just a point of view. When we just rest as the relaxed openness of perception in relation to everything that appears, then more and more we can inquire into all phenomena and understand them completely. We can inquire into all points of view and understand them completely. Now, many of us have a point of view that we are originally flawed in some way, that we as human beings have some kind of stain or mark that is very difficult to overcome. And this stain or mark is so pervasive within human culture that most of us never even think about it. And some of the names by which this stain or mark are called are original sin, reincarnation, karma. Does anyone have any other words they've used to describe something similar?
Pain body.
Pain body. Ego.
Wounded child.
Wounded child. The terms like pain body and wounded child are they're really a watering down of the impact of words like original sin, reincarnation, and karma. Those words are incredibly impactful. When we hear those words, the first thing we think is that applies to me, and I'm a sinner, or I'm flawed in some way karmically that excludes me from being mentally free. Now, all I have to say about that is just relax whenever any ideas like that come about, because the way they come about usually is that we feel unworthy. We feel unworthy to enjoy complete mental freedom. We compare ourselves to someone else, usually as an historical figure, some great being living now, who's totally free and being of tremendous benefit, and we say, oh, that's not me. You know, I'm one of the ones who's karmically bound. I'm a sinner. I'm one of those that ate the apple and there's no turning back. And so, you know, we have this idea of falling out, but there's never anything separate from pure space. So what would fall from what? No matter what it is, it's a vivid appearance of completely empty, pure space. So when we relax, then all of these belief systems that have had a very profound impact on us and stir up all kinds of emotional states within us due to our acceptance of them and rejection of ourselves as originally pure, which is what we really are. When we just relax, we come to understand all these things just as they are, that they really are just points of view. For example, the doctrine of reincarnation and karma, what it states is that there is a continuum of mind. So a continuum of mind means that you have a mind and you're appearing in this form now. And then when this form no longer is, that mind will still be, and then it will reappear in another form. So now here's another way of looking at that using a contemporary illustration. That's like saying that you go to a web page and say the web page is on child pornography. Now, I know no one here would want to go to a web page like that, but even if you do, just rest. Just rest. And then say something happens, law enforcement swoops in and they remove that web page from the internet. It's no longer there, the site's not there, you can't find it anywhere. And then someone else buys that URL, and then they put up a site on the birds and the bees and the butterflies and that kind of thing. Well, you know, these two things are a direct illustration of what is supposed to come about in karma and reincarnation. That there's some kind of continuum of space, and that one thing is replaced with another due to one's good and bad actions. But when we really consider space itself, one of the things we can see about it is that it's completely timeless. It's never had any time. We can't say that the sky up there is the sky of the present and it wasn't the sky of the past. And that there'll be then a future sky that takes that place. So the purity of space is just as it is completely free of all these concepts of one thing or another. It's just completely free of all these concepts of one thing or another. There's within complete timelessness, there's never been a continuum of any kind. How could there be a continuum or any kind of sequence in timelessness? So within timelessness, there's the freedom of creating time and space, just as things to kind of play around with, but they're always timelessly free. Time and place are always timelessly free. Pure space has never fallen into time. It's never been made into time. So time and space are simply concepts that are empty of an independent origin. They have no origin in their own right. They're not a specific thing. And these other things that we learn about ourselves aren't either continuum of mind, original sin. The original purity of space guarantees that everything is primordially pure. Today, with all kinds of scientific instruments, we can see that everything is made of space. Human beings, trees, the sky, buildings, birds. So, you know, this isn't so remote any longer. And we're creating all kinds of materializations that point to that too, such as the internet and telecommunications. We have all these ways of being together that don't involve bodies or anything. We can't really even prove there is a body anywhere when we send an email. So you see, our ideas about all these things are really loosening up. Why is it important to relax into this greater wisdom of the new mind? The reason that it's important for us as individuals is that it gives us total well-being. When we relax defining everything as something to accept or reject, we open up into a pure space of complete well-being at all times, no matter what thoughts and emotions there are, no matter what experiences there are. The essence of well-being is what is most obvious at all times. And that essence of well-being isn't seen as something apart from the thoughts, feelings, and experiences. The essence of well-being is seen as the basic space of those appearances, not something different. When we relax into that openness, we begin to tap into and draw on an essential wisdom that is completely beyond accepting and rejecting, beyond good and evil. A wisdom that is laser-like and can solve problems in really incredible ways. ways that are completely beyond the capacity of acceptance and rejection. From the clear, pure space of wisdom, solutions appear that aren't trapped in conventional designations. We as a species really need to open up into the new mind and really understand ourselves as we are in order to thrive. By the light, the clear light of the wisdom mind of potent benefit, we can solve the problems facing us as individuals and the problems facing our world. No matter how much we've accomplished in our life, in other words, no matter what great accomplishments we've had, the accomplishments we're capable of are vastly greater, many orders of magnitude greater, by relaxing into the openness of the new mind. When we talk about something called a mind, we have really trained ourselves to believe that the mind is in here somewhere, that it's a flesh and blood thing, an organ, and it's probably in the brain. And even if we've heard other things about the mind, it may really be a stretch for us to get out of feeling that the mind's right up here. Even if we hear the mind's in every cell of the body, it's we can't really even understand it intellectually, let alone decisively experience it. So, when we begin to relax into the perceptual openness in all experience, what we begin to realize is that the mind isn't really located anywhere. It doesn't have a location. It seems to have a location only because we've trained ourselves to believe that that is true. But when we relax completely into the openness of the vast expanse of infinite space, we realize that the mind has never been trapped anywhere, and that this mind is synonymous with awareness. And it isn't something that's divided up into a lot of bits and pieces between different beings or different things. It's just a wide open space that has never been caught anywhere. Now, a lot of times we have all kinds of belief systems that we've trained ourselves in, whether they're religion or spirituality or thinking that we are trapped inside a body or whatever it is. Now, we don't really even have to think about any of those in order to come to completely understand them. All we have to do is relax and not be distracted by the thinking. So this is what complete freedom is. The complete freedom of timeless wisdom is to relax body and mind completely in all experiences without distraction by anything that appears. And so without distraction means that when a thought or emotion or experience comes up, there isn't any distraction into that, such as, oh, I was blissful yesterday and now I'm morose today. So I'm morose, that means I've got to get back into blissful. And I guess I'm morose today because I ate too much banoffee at the Tulsi, and now I have a sugar hangover. So this is the elaboration. It starts rolling out where one thing is accepted and another is rejected. cause or results are attributed to causes, and this is how the whole process of acceptance and rejection comes about. We could call it object-oriented programming.
Does it have to?
Pardon?
Does it have to be related, or does one have to be conscious of thought? Like, for instance, I find that if I'm aware of thoughts, like you just mentioned, then the resting with them is effortless, because the nature of thought is very apparent. However, in some situations, like yesterday, there seems to be behaviour that comes out that's so rapid with no thought. Like there was a bunch of Indian guys I spoke with one evening, we had a lot of fun. The next day I walked past them, and one of them said something in Hindi. They started laughing, and my background was what you saying. It didn't seem to have any thought. And again, when I was sitting with Cathy yesterday, we was having a conversation, and the waiter started shouting honey, honey, honey really loudly with honey lemon. My initial response was an aggressive turnaround, and then the rest came afterwards, and I just started saying darling, darling, darling back, and it was dissolved. However, I'm not aware of a thought that this person's annoying me, I'm going to respond. It seems to be some kind of automatic learned behaviour. Comments?
Oh, that's making it a little too complicated. Just look at it in this way. Within the all-encompassing pure view of awareness, all points of view are completely unpredictable and not bound by time. Everything is simultaneously inherent. It has no sequence of time, so everything there is, every point of view there ever has been, is right now, and everything is contained in everything. So whatever the points of view are, they're completely unpredictable. They're not related to any cause-based origin. Just look at them as spontaneous appearances of awareness and nothing else, and continue to rest without needing to make anything out of anything.
That's what the experience is as rest. I was kind of more curious to what you said earlier. But yeah, so those things are just dissolved in that of themselves.
And the kind of coarse conduct a lot of times just irons out in and of itself.
Yeah.
The edge to everything softens. A lot of it, one of the illustrations that's been used traditionally is the potter's wheel. That if you're making a pot and you're pumping the pedal on the potter's wheel, and the wheel turns round and round and round, and when you take your foot off the pedal and stop pumping it, the wheel keeps going round and round and round for a while until it stops. One of the terms that we use in the Great Freedom Teaching to describe that is just this mechanical regeneration, whatever it is. There's no reason to try to figure it out. Just relax. If we try to figure it out or describe what's happening to us, then we're off in an elaboration about that. To just simply rest and allow everything to be as it is, and just be filled with the joy and gratitude of knowing about being able to relax perception. There's an upwelling of tremendous joy and gratitude in that, and also devotion to just resting is that, because it's certainly such a relief, and it's quite a boon. It's like finding the treasure in life. It's like always having had a huge pile of gold or an enormous diamond, but never being able to recognize it because you didn't know what gold or a diamond was, and thinking that you're in poverty. And then all of a sudden being able to identify gold and diamond and saying, wow, I'm a rich person. I'm totally rich. I've always been completely free. And it isn't anywhere else. It's all right here. It's right here as everyone. Any other questions? Do you have any questions, Anil?
Today you have traced all beliefs of Hindu religion, so very difficult to digest. We say not because the words were not clear, that is not the case, but I think it takes time to shake up from that inertia of old beliefs.
Yes.
So it looks like the reincarnation, you are shaking that the strongest pillar of Hindu religion. And let us take whatever the perceptions are as a relative thing. There is an absolute reality, everything is pure space, you call it awareness, whatever it is. But on a day-to-day basis, this is Anil and you are the great teacher here, right? That is why you are sitting there and I am sitting here. So there is a distinction at some level of relativity of reality. So looking at that level of reality which we face on a day-to-day basis, then there is somebody being born as Anil and somebody being born as teacher or is whatever. Very difficult for a Hindu to call a person like you with first name. Problem I'm facing. So,
Feel free.
So looking at that level means someone is born with a certain degree of intelligence. Somebody is born rich, somebody is born poor. There must be some reason for that. And the reason for that is given as karmas of the previous births. How can we deny that? That's it.
Thank you for such a beautiful question. Now, this is a very common belief, isn't it? It's the belief of karma, the doctrine of karma and reincarnation in both Hinduism and Buddhism is an attempt to explain why things are the way they are,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
That's all that it is. And this doctrine is also ancient. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So at some point, someone, somewhere, we don't know who it was or where it was, came up with this idea. A person just like you or me said, oh wow, there's some people are rich, some people are poor, some people are suffering, some people are happy. Why is this? And they thought about it for a little while and then they said, aha, it's because of this. So this is how all belief systems come about. An easy way to think about it is just to say, okay, well, no matter what I've believed about reincarnation or karma, I'm going to look at it for now as a point of view. And when it comes up, I'm just going to allow myself to rest. And I'll just know within myself that the more I rest, the greater understanding I'll have about karma and reincarnation.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Continue to rest. It's just like in your meditation practice. You were using different supports for your meditation, mantra, one-pointed concentration, other things. And then you decided you just drop them and rest. And so through that, it bore great fruits for you. So now I'm asking you to do the same thing in relation to this doctrine of karma and reincarnation when it comes up. Rather than using it as a support for who you take yourself to be, rest completely without any need to know anything about it. Why it came about, why some people are rich, why some people are poor. Just rest. And you will come to a point where you understand karma and reincarnation completely. Wouldn't you rather have your own first-hand experience of the true nature of karma and reincarnation than what someone else has told you about it?
Oh, I would like to. I would
Yes.
appreciate that.
This will come with the timeless wisdom of rest. Now, you know, when I had this complete shift 25 years ago into complete perceptual openness in all experience, it came about through resting in the immediacy of all perceptions, all my belief systems and assumptions, really committing to that. And then over a period of time, everything became equal. And so I hadn't been exposed to the karma and reincarnation doctrine, but I had been exposed to the doctrine of original sin, which is really very similar. It's very similar, except it doesn't talk about rebirth. It just says you're all bad. There aren't any good ones. You're all flawed, and you all descended from Adam and Eve, and they did something wrong. So now this is what I can tell you about my own experience with that. When I was a small child, I was trained as a Catholic, and then the time came when I learned about being a sinner, and I had to go and make my first confession and tell the priest what my sins were. But when they started teaching me about sin, I had a response of total revulsion in my body. It felt so wrong. I just knew for sure that there wasn't really anything like that. That I knew for sure that there was love, and I knew for sure that even though there was this thing that everyone believed in, that it couldn't be quite like that. Now, when I had this shift 25 years ago, I knew that conclusively then. You see, I knew that conclusively. So through rest, I came to a complete understanding about reincarnation and original sin and karma. And then when I hear things that are attributed to karma and reincarnation, I find them totally unacceptable from the viewpoint or vantage of complete perceptual openness. For example, just recently I was reading about the doctrine of karma and reincarnation, and a being said that, well, people are starving in Africa due to their karmic activity in past lives. The reason that there are people starving in Africa or India or anywhere else right now is due to them being karmically bound. In other words, in another life they committed certain actions and their punishment for that is to be starving now. Well, my direct and decisive experience of living is something completely different than that. My first-hand experience. So, I find that unacceptable. Even with an inquiring mind based on points of view, we can look into the resources of the world and we can see that there's plenty of food for everyone to eat. Now, when we attribute things to doctrines like karma and reincarnation, what we're really doing is taking a point of view and we're dressing it up as a religious truth that lets us let go of responsibility for taking care of these people. That's what happens. So we abdicate responsibility in a way. Even with doctrines of compassion, cultivating compassion and things like that, we've never been able to cultivate enough compassion to feed the hungry people in India and Africa and elsewhere. So we have 85% of the world's people who don't have enough food to eat. What I'm saying is that we haven't been able to solve any of these problems with all our points of view about original sin, good and evil, reincarnation, karma, whatever they might be. But when we relax into the complete openness of timeless wisdom, we see a whole new way of being that's never existed. So I'm just suggesting to you to relax completely. And through that, you will have complete understanding of the true nature of all phenomena. Would you like another example?
No, I think that is good enough. If you can give me, because the roots of this is too strong within me.
It's very strong.
Very, very strong.
And what do you?
You are shaking it the very foundation of. The shaking is being felt not just within, outside. I can see that.
Well, let's take it. Let's look at it from one more angle that's related to your own tradition, and that is that what I am teaching here isn't something that popped up in California. What is being taught here is absolutely timeless, and these teachings actually originated here.
Yes.
These are Hindu and Buddhist teachings: to rest imperturbably without describing anything, to rest naturally without seeking anything. These are the epitome teachings of both Hinduism and Buddhism. So no matter how many great beings there have been serving the needs of so many other countless beings, there have always been epitome teachers and teachings, and whether they've been Hindu or Buddhist or whoever they've been, they've reached the point where they've said there is no karma. There is no reincarnation. There's no need for meditation. So you see, that's another way of looking at it too, that even people who have believed so deeply as you do in these doctrines, through their practice of resting imperturbably in relation to all points of view, have realized that karma and reincarnation have never been.
Could you quote names of any great sages in this respect? You said who have promoted that sort of teaching?
Oh, sure, I could give you a very long list.
Maybe anyone in last 100 years?
I can give you the name of all of the tradition of Nisarga Yoga, like Nisargadatta Maharaj, and some of these other teachers have arrived at that point where they've said there is no reincarnation or karma. But many of these teachings, as you probably know, Hinduism was very popular in Vedanta in India for thousands of years, and then Buddha was born. And then Buddhism swept all over India, and then most of India became Buddhist. But then Adi Shankara was born, and then it shifted again back to Hinduism. He said, what Buddhism is teaching, that's really Vedanta. So let's re-enliven our roots of Vedanta. So then that was re-enlivened, and Buddhism left India and went to other places like Tibet, Nepal, all throughout Asia. And so many of these epitome teachings at that time left India, and they went to other places, but they were still Indian. But throughout all of time, from the greatest masters who ever lived, who taught these kinds of things, like Garib Dorje and Padmasambhava, and on up to the present, a long lineage, like a chain of golden mountains. All of these people started out with the belief in reincarnation and karma, but they ended up saying, there is no need for solitude, there is no need for meditation.
That's right.
Karma and reincarnation have never been, even though with some of them, they believed it so deeply. In one case, one person wrote 200 books about these things. But then in the end, he wrote a couple books and said, well, karma and reincarnation, they're just phenomena. They're points of view, just like any other point of view. And I've arrived at that by resting imperturbably in relation to all phenomena, as all phenomena. So no matter what happens, enjoy complete perceptual openness in all experience, no matter what it's named or called. You see, the moment you say there is something like reincarnation and karma, dualist thinking
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
So you see, many non-dual teachings have so many trappings of dualist language that there's no way to ever arrive at non-duality through them. So this is why I suggest only to enjoy complete perceptual openness in all experience. We need, as human beings today, to find out who we really are through our own firsthand experience, not based on the experience of others. And you know this already. You've had so much experience of this in your own life with the scientific advances you've participated in and continue to make. You know that those did not come from holding on to conventional ways of thinking about things at all. They've come about through completely setting all those aside. So you see, you're already skilled and experienced at this. Now you just need to apply those skillful means to other things that you've learned. Rest openly. Just, in the same way as when all of your advances have come about. No matter how much you've learned in computer science, you had to go beyond that.
Idol worship and worshipping a picture
Uh-huh.
or any symbol which are there in most of the religions. I don't think there is any religion which doesn't have that.
Mhm.
Hindus, it is very popular. In Christianity, I think also
Yes,
cross, stick,
symbols have always been
symbols, right,
important to
symbols have been
people.
important. But you have taken away those also today. We will talk.
That's a very good point. Now, nothing has been taken away. That's what I will say. Nothing has been taken away. But rather than symbols that are very difficult for people to relate to today, because my interest is in all human beings together as a global human culture, rather than any particular cultural belief. So everyone coming together in a common belief about who we are. So in the Great Freedom Teaching, we do use symbols, but there's symbols everyone can relate to. So in the Great Freedom Teaching, the ultimate or supreme symbol we use is space. It's space. So if we look at any deity, picture of a deity or an idol or whatever it is, what is it comprised of really?
Okay, that's fine. It is space, but
Yeah.
Okay, it is being taken as a representative of that pure space.
Yes.
Right? The mind, it is very difficult for mind to visualize pure space, and to substitute that or to make it easy for the mind, some picture is taken
Mhm.
and we worship that. But in heart, we must know that it is representing that absolute reality.
Mhm.
Is there anything wrong in that?
As long as you're resting and not making anything out of it. Now, here we go with that point of view. Okay, and we see, what's most important about any of these points of view that are supposed to lead to the absolute, what's most important about those points of view is whether or not they really lead there. So,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So then we have to use some good business sense when it comes to examining these different approaches. And then we have to say, well, I want this more than anything. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to adopt a method or approach that has worked for the most people. That would be good business sense. Now, many of these things, they haven't worked, or if they do work, they work for exceedingly few people. More and more, the complete freedom of mind has become totally marginalized. It's a marginalized activity of very, very few. And of all institutions on earth, it's the most gender biased. Yeah, we would have to admit that if we look at it even through fundamental, simple, elementary inquiry. So what we see is, that there's something here that isn't working. What's being promised isn't being delivered. So today we have enough information about this matter that we can look at all the different approaches and we can say, well, what has worked? And when we look at what has worked, then we find that it's resting imperturbably. This has worked for more people throughout human history than any other practice. In fact, those who have realized the timeless wisdom of everything as it is, if totaled together from all other approaches, would be only a fraction of those who achieved the result through resting imperturbably. Now, just within the last 50 years, with one teacher who died at the end of the 1950s, over 100,000 people realized the true nature of their being through just this practice. So, we can't argue with those results. Where else do we see 100,000 people who...
You are referring to 100,000 figure in Tibet?
Pardon?
You are referring to this figure of 100,000 in Tibet?
In Tibet and Bhutan and Nepal, where this teacher taught. Now, this is so easy, but reality is reality. It's right here. It's not somewhere else. It isn't something totally inaccessible that it's really difficult to get to. It's right here in the relaxed nature of our own being. And I'm not telling you to not believe anything. I'm not saying give up all your beliefs. I'm just saying rest completely as that belief and come to know everything about it that can possibly be known, and you will arrive at your own conclusions. You will arrive at a conclusion based on peaceful intelligence. The peaceful intelligence that is inseparable from what you call the absolute. Is that something you can do?
Yeah.
Great.
It is not that there is not enough faith in your teachings.
Mm-hmm.
It is just the belief system has gone down in each and every blood cell.
I
It's very
understand.
difficult to. It is taking a little bit of time to shake that off.
I completely understand, and that's fine, that's beautiful, that's normal, that's just the way it is, because all points of view, no matter what they are timelessly free. And some of these points of view, they really have a big effect on us. We were talking about it yesterday afternoon in the retreat. When we begin to rest imperturbably, at first we rest as all our overt points of view, the points of view we've always had, And then the more we rest, the more some of these others we start to look at and wonder about. So the more subtle beliefs we've had come up. And what usually looks us right in the face at some point is this original flaw that we feel, that we're somehow flawed. And we can have all kinds of feelings of unworthiness then. Unworthiness of being the absolute pure space, unworthiness of, of complete freedom. And these feelings can be very strong. They can feel like unworthiness or impending doom or incredible anxiety and worthlessness or whatever it is. But all these are just points of view too. They're not any kind of fixed identity of what we are. So rather than not expecting to have those feelings, expect to have them. That's realistic. Expect that they will occur. These subtle points of view will occur. This is stated in all our teachings, but when people start to really face these, sometimes they say, oh, what to do? I didn't know this would happen. However, it states in the teaching that it's important to know this will happen. It definitely will happen. And there's plenty of support available for you when it does occur. Another thing that's really wonderful today is because of the way things are with instant communication with everyone, there's 24/7 support through the Great Freedom Teaching, just like one of those convenience markets where you can go in and get a soda any time of the night or day. There's always support available. So if you're facing anything like this, help is just a chat away by phone or email or whatever it is. It can feel scary, and that's okay, but there is support available. You're not in it alone. There is support for resting naturally.
But all help is available in the awareness itself.
Pardon?
All help is available in the awareness itself.
It is, It is available in the awareness itself, and because everything is awareness, that includes nothing and everything. So we when we talk about that in the Great Freedom Teaching, we talk about the 4 comforts, and they are the practice of imperturbable rest, without distraction by points of view, without the need to change or do anything about points of view. And 2, the teaching, 3, the community, and 4, the teacher. So all those are vivid appearances of awareness and nothing else. If we want to face these things on our own, we can, but it's going to be kind of like trying to climb out Mount Everest without a guide. That's not something we'd want to do. That would be foolhardy. When there are people available who have already resolved these scary points of view that come up, why not ask them how they did it? Yeah. That's all the teacher and the community and the teaching are. They're warm-hearted friends.
Somehow, I keep comparing your teachings with one of the greatest non-duality teacher, Sri Raman Maharshi.
Oh,
So, although his teachings are absolutely, or in core values, are quite similar to yours, but the methodology is quite different. And he also says that grace of Guru or the teacher is required for permanent settling down in that awareness, let us say, putting in your words. Could you please comment on that? although he says Guru is not different than that absolute reality.
Yes.
It is the same thing. But
Mhm.
still, a personified form of that absolute reality is required to realize that absolute awareness, absolute reality.
Mhm. Well, complete rest is grace. So there's never been anything that's outside of grace.
Yes.
The way to make use of a teacher is to rest as that in which you and the teacher appear.
When you as a teacher appear.
Rest as that in which you and the teacher appear. When we hear a term like Guru's grace, it means different things to different people depending on our filters. In other words, our points of view. So one person might take Guru's grace to be one thing, and another person will take Guru's grace to be another thing. And all these will be things that are thought about. So we're thinking about what Guru's grace is and how it's happening. How's this mysterious thing of Guru's grace happening? What's most important about Guru's grace is to get a first-hand experience in our own body of what Guru's grace is. And what Guru's grace is complete rest. Guru means dispeller of darkness. When we rest, we're in grace, and everything is grace, no matter what it is. Today, a lot of the forms that may have been very successful at one time just aren't working anymore. So, it's up to us as human beings to enliven new ways of looking at that. And today there are many people in the world who, when they hear Guru and having a Guru and relying on Guru's grace, they run so fast the other way and so far. They really don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yes, the majority will be, but
there will be some that do, and that's beautiful and good. It's really good. It's really good. If you feel moved in that way and it's totally natural to you, that's great. However, some people just don't feel moved in that way, and they never will feel moved in that way. So to hear something about the four comforts and rely on the four comforts and the support of the teacher, that's something more people can understand. If you say rely on the support of the teacher, it's the same thing as saying take refuge in the Lama or take refuge in Guru's grace. We need to have an expression that invites everyone in. And then resting, we can dabble in whatever we like. If we want to be totally devoted to the Guru, completely in love with the Guru, and not spend a moment away from the Guru, we can do that. But not everyone will want to do that. So whatever it is, it's important that it be available to everyone. The true Guru's grace is that touches everyone impartially. It touches everyone impartially. This is more important than anything. When we rest naturally, we learn definitively what all of these things mean in an ultimate way.
The comparison is being made only for having or developing the understanding. It is not for any other reason. Please don't take it.
You are just so respectful and lovely, Anil. I completely understand where you're coming from. And it is extremely important to ask all these questions and to clear up all doubts. You see, in resting imperturbably, nothing needs to change. There are quite a few people sitting in this room who live in an ashram or in different ashrams. And the Great Freedom Teaching has people involved who are involved in all kinds of different practices, but they're all resting imperturbably no matter what they're doing. That's their primary practice. And this really is the primary practice of all non-dual teachings. The only way to arrive at the non-dual expanse and really open to that as a decisive experience in one's own life is to rest as the equalness of everything. Rest is the absolute equalness of everything. To see the absolute guru, to see the face of the absolute Lama, is to see everything as the guru, everything as the Lama. When we rest, we understand all of these ancient terms completely.
Thank you.
You don't have to give up any of your ways that you love to be. Just rest and you'll understand the ultimate nature of everything, no matter what it is.
In some sense, they have to go away, and I feel it is good that they are going away one by one. So I don't see anything wrong in giving up them, but I'm not forcing myself to give up them.
Sure, no
It's
need
coming
to.
automatically.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. That's the way it comes about. That's the way rest is. It isn't clobbering things over the head with the sledgehammer of intellectual scrutiny. Resting in the complete ease of being, of everything as it is, and all opens up into pure space. Are there any other questions?
First, I want to say that I have this feeling resting. It's funny to say. I can't wait to live my life. Everything, even the hard things or hard things. My question is about that points of view are not predictable, but yet in certain circumstances I can predict of certain points of view repeat coming. Anat has different points of view that keep arising than Shasad, for example, all those things. And yeah.
And what is an example of that for you?
Mm.
What kind of points of view keep coming up?
Doubts about resting, for example, or and that's about, okay. Many points of view arise for many people, but wow, why it's so hard to find? In conversation, English conversation, point of view of I don't know to speak English arise, and then I really cannot speak English. I start to for example. And Shah is Hebrew speaker as well, and it doesn't happen as far as I know. This point of view does not arise.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, don't get distracted by it. That's the key point. If the point of view comes up, oh, I don't know how to speak English well enough, and then you go off on a story about that, elaborating it, fabricating other points of view associated with that point of view, that's to be distracted. To say, oh, I'm not a very good English speaker, oh, I guess I better be quiet, or I'll say it the wrong way, or what are they thinking of me? That's elaboration, you see, to take that original point of view and be distracted by it. Rest in the immediacy of the perception of the point of view. And as you do so, it vanishes naturally without a trace.
Yeah, I know it by experience. Yeah.
Short moments repeated many times, completely uncontrived, become automatic.
One of the reasons I ask this question is that point of view that I have from Vipassana teaching about accumulation of points of view, accumulation of negative reactions. They call it sankharas, you know this term, you know? So sometimes it seems to be like that because of the repetition of things that keep arising. So it really feels, it seems like, I have this accumulation, and then it arises. So.
When all the doctrines and dogmas and whatever they are, descriptions appear, just rest completely. Who we are, it's totally simple. All-encompassing pure view of awareness containing all points of view, period. There isn't a special entity called a somebody who's a special storehouse of their points of view. And whatever there is to understand about individuality is most keenly, precisely, and specifically understood in complete rest.